This week's episode was brought to you by MJ, Keaton Hudima, and Ryan. Thank you, MJ, Keaton Hudima, and Ryan. It's with the generous support of listeners, and sometimes guests, like yourself, that keep our flotilla of astral shadow pirate bunnies patrolling the distant waters of the collective unconscious, protecting our carrot supply ships from the unmentionable monstrosities of the depths too loathsome to imagine, even amongst our most veteran dreamers. If you'd like to help us keep our supply ships safe or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your generous monthly donation of just $5 will not only ensure your passage to our mothership, but access to our entire library of extended episodes, including this one. But that's not all. I'll even send you a high-quality 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, along with the digital keys to our Discord server, where the endless waves of time are harnessed into a bubble that floats as if upon a glorious sea of cheese, where we grill burgers and wieners in eternity. If that sounds too intimate, consider giving us a like, subscribe, or share in your social media platform of choice. Preferably on a burner account where your friends won't have to learn about the weird stuff you listen to. This week's episode sees us dust off the old VHS copy of the late 90s Gnostic science fiction classic, Dark City, written and directed by Alex Proyas. This was the thing your mom was talking about when you told her you wanted to see The Matrix back in 1999, but she said, "No, we have it at home!" with some scenes almost matching shot for shot with The Matrix itself. Perhaps more remarkably is how Dark City tackles similar themes on loan from ancient Gnostic philosophy, but does so in a way faithful to its science fiction roots in German Expressionism, where it finds inspiration in the fertile imaginations of Fritz Lang and Alban Grau, the creators of Metropolis and Nosferatu, respectively. The result is a film which, beneath its slick noir surface, is a thoughtful meditation on the dark side of spirituality, evolution, and the destiny of the human soul. In the first half of the show, we discuss some of the occult roots of the science fiction genre itself, and what it has to do with the Aeon of Horus, championed by Aleister Crowley, before cutting into the dense symbolism in the film's opening using the tarot as our guide. In the extended show, we visit the abode of Netzach and go deeper into Greek and Hindu mythology to unpack some of the symbolism used in the film, before discussing the overlap between the strangers and their shadowy, real-life counterparts who manipulate our destiny from circles beyond time. We hope you brought your Kabbalah glasses, your Greek mythology hats, and your mystic nicotine patch, because we're going to be talking shop in this one. Thank you, and enjoy the show. You know, there's a city in Ohio called Engagement.
Really?
Yeah, it's somewhere between Dayton and Marion.
That's good. That's really funny.
We all know Las Vegas, the Sin City. But you know what Den City is?
No.
Mass over volume. All right, what's the largest city in America?
What?
Obesity.
Oh, no.
Why are city-dwelling gnomes very good at keeping time?
Why?
Because they're metronomes.
Oh, yay.
I like that one.
That was good.
Yeah.
Which horse runs the city?
Which one?
The mayor, of course.
Oh, that's a stretch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just explore the idea that we're all hopelessly ensnared in a vast psycho-spiritual prison managed by a high-tech race of degenerate aliens whose one purpose in life is to drain us of hours and drag us into the vast cave system below. Nay, we also explore how our spiritual internment is represented in lost Gnostic manuscripts, ancient mythology, esoteric symbolism, and most importantly, forgotten gems of film from the late 90s, which incorporate all of these ideas into a thoughtful, yet entertainingly cohesive whole, which would be criminal to deprive a second look, because this week we're exploring the Gnostic science fiction 90s horror action special effects noir mutant classic, Dark City, and its depth of occult and otherwise Gnostic symbolism. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the macerator of the unnamed aerial menace, Mari-sama.
Awoo!
The anti-myth rhythm death rock shakalaka, Malachor 5.
What's up?
And the holy harlot of Hesperides, Hecka Astra.
Hello.
And now we resume our series of top-tier Gnostic films from the 90s nobody saw because trailers were so bad.
I really wish I went and saw this in the movie theater.
Oh, yeah, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, this one just appeared on the Blockbuster shelves in the horror section. I don't know if anyone actually saw it in theaters. I think the people who made the trailers in the 90s didn't actually watch the films.
Oh, that's a good explanation for why they're so awful.
It's like because the movies themselves were pretty good.
Yeah, I just think the tone is different. Like, maybe they're trying trying to make it more thrilling or like action packed than it was supposed to be.
For me, it's also the fact that we were just about to discover HD quality. So it's in this middle ground where it still looks a little grainy, fuzzy, and warm, but it also has that nice futuristic look to it, and you can see full detail, but it still looks old enough that just even this movie has some scary moments that like, oh, I wouldn't want to like stand in that room. It looks kind of trippy, especially on Netflix because they use those trippy ass cameras. Forget what they're called, but everything looks glossed over with like some filter special effect, and it's like, is that even in the room with them or not?
I feel like the 90s knew the balance between practical effects and digital.
Yes, agree.
So because this episode is intended to break open the psycho-spiritual DNA of the film, it's going to be flooded with spoilers, naturally.
Go see it. Go watch it now.
One of the best movies. It's really good.
Dark City is also the intersection of multiple ongoing big idea topics we entertain on the show, and I suspect the writer/director, Alex Proyas, did this on purpose, as he explains during his interview in Memories of Shell Beach, that Dark City emerged from years of studying, he pauses briefly before settling on the word, philosophy.
Yeah.
Not the occult at all, but
Yeah, no. How do I put this in a way that doesn't make me seem like a weirdo?
You can take one look at his other films and you can tell he's like drowning in tarot cards at home.
Well, his other really well-known movie is none other than The Crow with Brandon Lee in it.
Which has its own occult backstory with the curse of the Lee family, etc.
But they're highly visual, like almost like, I mean, I liken them to graphic novels, especially noir ones.
Well, The Crow is based off of James O'Barr graphic comics.
But the atmosphere that Alex Proyas got in his movies, I think, likens to that style. The lighting, the setting. You guys got to see it if you haven't seen it.
Well, as it turns out, both of those things come from the same place. And so by looking at the inspiration that Alex Proyas had to work with, we'll see very quickly how deep the rabbit hole goes. Long story short, this episode's gonna be full of symbolism, so put your Kabbalah glasses on.
And throw on that Gnostic hat, because like Luke said in the intro, this is like a Gnostic film.
Absolutely.
And it's sort of, if you think about, even The Labyrinth, the one with David Bowie, she kind of gets sucked into a Gnostic world where she isn't the master, and there's like a whole, I guess, journey to go through to get yourself out of it. In her case, like, I think it's like what her dream is and what she really wants is in the end, right?
It's remarkably similar to this film.
Yeah, which if you watch the film, you'll see that it shares the star of The Labyrinth, Jennifer Connelly. So there's a lot of connections that I feel like this movie and The Labyrinth have just because she's in it. So I'm going to be pulling on that thread a little bit too. So
it's that weird Lynchian casting we talk about.
Yeah, where Lynch will hire the same person sort of for the same role over and over again. And I think that's not the only case, but in all of Hollywood, they will hire the same actor for the same role in a different titled movie because they do characters like that well, or for whatever reason, right? So,
well, let's get into it. One of the best things about Dark City is how it draws upon older classical material while still maintaining its edge as a unique and poignant manifestation of the ideas it's inspired from, according to Roger Ebert.
Dark City resembles its great silent predecessor Metropolis in asking what it is that makes us human and why it cannot be changed by decree. Both films are about false worlds created to fabricate ideal societies, and in both, the machinery of the rulers is destroyed by the hearts of the ruled. Both are parables in which a dangerous weapon attacks the order of things, a free human who can see what really is and question it.
In alignment with Ebert's observation, Alex Proyas mentions that a primary inspiration for Dark City was in fact Fritz Lang's seminal classic Metropolis. One look at the set design in Dark City will make that obvious. To get the entire story, check out our episode on it, but it would be an understatement to say that Fritz Lang's Metropolis had an enduring legacy on the history of film itself. Metropolis helped establish the science fiction genre, but like Dark City, had mixed reception for its confusing and ominous use of symbolism, with one critic, Channing Pollock, going as far as to say,
"The symbolism runs such riot that people who saw it couldn't tell what the picture was about."
And this is no small point, because the ideas that Fritz Lang was getting at have permeated science fiction ever since, and Dark City very much feels like an homage to this fact. For starters, Fritz Lang belonged to the German Expressionistic movement, which, broadly speaking, sacrifices realism for a more emotive and expressive quality. This is true of how actors gesticulate on stage, but especially in terms of lighting, set design, which is provocative, colorful, and stylized, all intended to show the subjective inner world of its characters. So adept was Lang at this style that he was dubbed the Master of Darkness, and is widely considered the creator of the noir genre, which is all all said an evolution of the expressionistic style so popular pre-World War I Germany.
Yay, it's one of my favorite styles in all art.
Me too. It really has a legacy, and we see this legacy well represented in Dark City with its dark lighting, stark contrast, and sharp, evocative colors, which occasionally punctuate its dreary, cold, steam-billowing metropolitan setting, perfect for a grizzled detective to get lost in and ponder his existential dread. The humans are scented meat.
Someone once told me time is a flat circle.
Etc. Think of Batman, Fallout, Blade Runner, Cyberpunk, Star Wars, Sin City. Take your pick.
Bloodborne.
Perfect. There's even a kind of a Bloodborne encounter with Uncle Frank in the wheelchair. Pulls a shotgun on you. All of these owe no small measure to Fritz Lang. But the most famous of these early German expressionistic filmmakers would undoubtedly be F.W. Murnau, and especially his 1922 horror classic Nosferatu, which Dark City writer Alex Proyas cites as his inspiration for his archontic strangers, the antagonists of his film. This is important because the producer and set designer for Nosferatu was Albin Grau, a lifelong member of the German secret society Fraternitas Saturni, or the Brotherhood of Saturn, and resolutely intended on making films centered on the occult and paranormal, founding Prana Film Studio to this end. Prana is another word for chi or vital force, the very medium of occult power itself. And you know, Eggers, the guy who did The Witch and Nosferatu, like the remake, he's sort of following in Grau's legacy where he just wants to make films about the occult. But Grau did it first, according to Wikipedia.
Grau was largely responsible for the look and spirit of the film, including the sets, costumes, storyboards, and promotional materials.
This, for me, at least demonstrates that occultism, of the Saturn-worshipping variety no less, and evocative filmmaking has never been unmarried.
I mean, it kind of just makes sense, right? It's all time-based.
Yes.
It's like a record of things. Totally Saturn.
So, to be fair, I've yet to conclusively prove that Fritz Lang was a member of the Brotherhood of Saturn. They did keep it secret, but it would be an understatement to say that many of their colorful ideas became major themes in Metropolis, which, although confused many critics and audience members alike, was imitated endlessly and forged an enduring legacy for the future of science fiction. I think it's reasonable to suspect Alex Proyas was aware of these facts when making Dark City, and it shows. On this note, I think it's worth mentioning that Alex Proyas won a Saturn Award for Dark City in the category of Best Science Fiction Picture, which is saying something because the Saturn Awards are held by the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. It's like their specialty. The logo for the trophy itself, it looks startlingly similar to the infamous Saturn lamp, which appears in the Black Lodge of Twin Peaks, but also in Blade Runner, which, besides being a progeny of Fritz Lang's Metropolis, owes its origin to the Gnostic prophet and science fiction author Philip K. Dick, who also conceptualized the world that we live in as a vast psycho-spiritual prison where we're held in captivity by an alien race of soul-sucking archontic overlords who infuse us with false memories and experiment on us.
You are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage. Born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch.
Etc.
Yeah, the Saturn Award trophy looks like a Man in Black or the Hat Man, like the government watching you outside your house, you know?
Like Melania Trump.
She's just going around stealing people's bikes, selling them for drugs. Oh, God, that would be great.
Where's the white spy? You know what I mean?
And, you know, it's funny because you mentioned the alien race of soul-sucking overlords, right? So it's funny because, like, if you didn't watch the first, 2 minutes or so of this movie, they straight up tell you that Earth, and humans were abducted by an alien race that were dying, and they're trying to find out what makes a human, right? Like, they tell you right away in the beginning of the movie, and it's like, oh, okay. So everything I'm watching is, just, not exactly what it seems.
I guarantee that's not how Alex intended it, but they wheeled him into a room, and they beat him with whips until that scene got put in there. I guarantee it. Because people were dumb back then.
They just said 2 words to him. Saturn Award? ? Saturn Award? And then beat him.
Yes.
Yeah, and Proyas, he must have some crazy affinity with Saturn because The Crow was also nominated for the Saturn Award. He just keeps hitting the notes.
I still need to see his God of Egypt movie, where they're superheroes. I hear it's not good. What do I know? It could be amazing.
It doesn't have to be. You make 2 really good movies.
What's the best movie I've ever seen? I just don't know yet. All right, so what's the big deal about Saturn? Is it really so important to science fiction? And what does it got to do with Dark City? Why would a bunch of shadowy turn-of-the-century Gnostic German occultists vaguely associated with Aleister Crowley worship such an ambiguous, ominous planet, which seems to have spooky associations with every Abrahamic religion on the planet? The answer is because, according to occult tradition, Saturn is the ruling planet of the dawning age of Aquarius.
I am the Senate.
Long story short, short, the Earth wobbles on its axis like a top, and it makes it so the sun rises in a different sign of the zodiac every 2,000 years. This backwards motion through the zodiac means currently we're somewhere between the age of Pisces, a mutable water sign, and moving into Aquarius, a fixed air sign. Saturn is originally the ruling planet of Aquarius. Aquarius is generally associated with communities, the collective, civic life, but also technology, science, innovation, and even revolution. Just a peek outside will reveal that these themes dominate our news cycle and even how we live our lives here in 2025.
Yeah, this is the whole Age of Pisces, Jesus fish story is understood by magicians or occultists.
And so as Revelation illustrates, the transition between ages is prophesied to be tumultuous and chaotic, but to put it plainly, the domain of much of the occult world is finding ways to hasten this transition or guide it towards a favorable conclusion. This process is referred to as Immanentizing the Eschaton, and if you think about it, much of the best science fiction and fantasy uses this concept as the thrust of its storytelling. Much of the Brotherhood of Saturn's concerns were imagining ways to balance the energies of Saturn, which will decide how the whole thing unfolds. Likewise, Saturn, the ruler of this new eschaton, is a planet of strictness, authority, discipline, tradition, measure, limitation, structure, death, and the old elite order. You put the two together, you get a powerful, shadowy, technocratic elite which rules society from the heights of its heaven-piercing tower with cold, detached indifference. Certainly there has to be a better way. After all, the higher octave of Saturn is brotherly love, equality, liberation, abundance, and beauty. Is that not always what the future is supposed to be promising us? Admittedly, the idea of balancing Saturnian energy for a better outcome is vague and nebulous when you put it in purely those terms. So far, it just sounds like trying to beat everyone else to the top of a dark Bavarian pyramid for the elite. This might be exactly what it is, but interpreting what role Saturn plays in immanentizing the Eschaton actually makes more sense when we think of it in Aleister Crowley's terms, which he gleaned from the Book of the Law, especially as it pertains to the events we see play out in Dark City. To Aleister Crowley, receiving the Book of the Law was announcing a new aeon ruled by the child Horus, the Egyptian god of the sky. Putting classical attributions aside, Uranus, the Greek god of the sky, is the modern ruler of Aquarius, not Saturn. Keep this dichotomy in mind. According to Thelemic doctrine, the Aeon of Horus emerges from the Aeon of Osiris, the dying god, who, as we have discussed on the show ad nauseum, is the blueprint for the Saturn archetype. This Saturn archetype, in turn, is the blueprint for the Abrahamic god of all three major religions. This is why the black cube is everywhere. For a Gnostic, this Abrahamic god is typically understood to secretly be Yaldabaoth, Saklas, or even Samael, a tyrannical idiot archdemon who created the simulation for its own aggrandizement. When Aleister Crowley speaks of the Black Brotherhood, he's always referring to a priest class which worships this entity for worldly power and self-aggrandizement. Generally speaking, the Aeon of Osiris refers to a formula of enlightenment defined by sacrifice and is emblematic of the rule of the male priest class or patriarchy, which rose during the age of Taurus, the bull, finding its culmination in Jesus Christ, the fish. This is why the Illuminati worships bulls and fish and is utterly obsessed with sacrifice. The Aeon of Osiris is thought as a backlash against the Aeon of Isis, where goddesses like Hecate were of primary importance and owes to an Edenic existence prior to the rise of the city-state, private property, the male priest class, or even distinct fully formed individual egos. You know, hunter-gatherer times. Crowley's Aeon of Horus was meant to be a synthesis of these two previous aeons, as in Egyptian mythology, Horus is the child of Osiris and Isis. So why is Saturn, or in this myth Osiris, the bad guy? Well, it's because when the elite cling to the old aeonic energies after their proper time has passed, it degrades into its twin energy, Set, the satanic force, which slays the good Osiris, like the Jesus character, and knowing that Horus is destined to one day grow up and avenge his father, Osiris, eventually take the throne as the king of Egypt, he tries his damnedest to kill the child before he can be raised to maturity. I mean, this makes a lot of sense when we think of the technocratic, Satan-worshipping, bullfish, black cube, money-worshipping harmers of children that currently run our world today and the collective spirit of humanity rising up against it. On this, Crowley says,
The Osirian rituals, including self-sacrifice to an abstract ideal, mutilation to appease an ex cathedra morality, teach false and futile methods of acquiring false knowledge. They must be cast away or purged. The schools of initiation must be reformed. So he's saying there's got to be like a magical order revolution. It's called Thelema.
Yeah, and like the people, the power elite that cling to the old formulas, the old ways, the old structures, they need to be cast out because like they become evil.
I mean, I also see this reflected in, normal society as we're viewing it right now, because with all the talk of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, there's a certain push for the decentralization of power and authority in societies, as in every one person or small group of individuals should be able to come together and govern themselves. And to me, that's what Crowley is saying here, is that the old ways are that you basically give all of your power to a centralized authority figure that is outside of yourself. But the real way to this knowledge is by going inward and finding the truth within yourself and being honest to that instead of some projected outward, I guess, authority figure. And then the knowledge associated around worshiping that outward figure is also considered false because, again, you're basically just misdirecting onto something else instead of where it should be in your own soul.
Yeah, Crowley explains it in the Book of the Law to, it's line 49 of chapter 1, I believe. It's line 49 of one of the chapters. I believe it's one. But it's a long one. But in it, he says, Horus has taken his seat in the east, which is like saying that he's on the throne now and it's not Osiris and it's the new Aeon.
And so what am I getting at? The point is that it really seems like all the science fiction movies that followed in the footsteps of Fritz Lang are telling this story over and over again in different ways. In the case of Dark City, we learn that the shadowy elite, or Black Brothers, are also a technocratic elite who control the masses telepathically by use of enormous subterranean machines built upon an alien tech so advanced it's akin to magic. Listen to our previous episodes for the full story about what Richard Shaver said in the 1940s, claiming that this was all literally true of our world, what we see here in Dark City. So just put that out there. This could all be true. Anyway, the Strangers, like Shaver's Darrow, are members of a nearly extinct alien race who secretly control the lives of the oblivious surface dwellers who they kidnap, torture, and experiment on at will. While Shaver claimed most ardently that the Darrow were embodied, tangible beings, occultists have a special attraction to Shaver's cosmology because they believe Shaver was just confused and merely witnessing the spirit world, specifically the lowest section of the astral realm, where they believe Shaver was confusing Darrow for the spirits of the dead. To give a summary of what Lamal Duquette explains in his demonic exercising classic Low Magic, the lower astral is like the bottom of a fish tank, where all the discarded astral forms of the living float down before they finally decay and rejoin the circle of life. Typically, when we dream, we zip right past the zone up to the higher realms, but occasionally, due to poor diet, drugs, illness, or sleep paralysis, we can get stuck at the bottom, where wayward spirits often hide themselves in the discarded astral husks to pose as dead relatives and cause mischief, as we see in so many Ouija board gone wrong stories. Part of the problem is that these spirits always seem to know stuff about our lives that only we or a relative would know, suggesting that they can either read our minds like a book, or the memories of the dead relatives are somehow accessible through the husk they're wearing. This raises the question in real life as it does in the film.
Are we merely the collection of our memories, or is there something more?
So if you ever talk to your dead grandma through a Ouija board, it's probably just a loosh-sucking, trans-dimensional octopus vampire creature, okay? Just keep that in mind, folks.
It reminds me of dementia patients and how people explain it's like the person dies before they lose their memory because that person is not there anymore. But then there are glimmers of recognition and like, it's not like the person doesn't enjoy being around you anymore. They just can't really remember who you are. So there's still some kind of connection that's present after the memories go, but memories are considered largely a part of how we identify our own ego and how we relate to one another.
And of course, this is a huge theme in Metal Gear Solid 2, which deals with many of the same existential questions here.
Implanting memories in people. It's also showcased in this movie of like, that's kind of how they will change people, is by giving them different memories.
To see if they'll behave differently or something.
I mean, but why?
Well, I mean, they do state in the movie that they're studying humans because they want to have a soul like humans do, I guess is how it's said in the film.
Yes.
But I think that's what the question, like you just mentioned, that's what they're trying to figure out. The problem that the Strangers have is that they're looking for the soul in the memories, in the physical apparatus of recording moments in time in our brain. They're looking at that as the seat of the soul or the self, but they don't have the capacity to look beyond that into, I mean, I guess we'll get to talking about it, but you could call it intuition or the super subconscious of the entire species. Like they can't look into that through just the memories of one person. So that's where they get messed up.
Because the film explains the Strangers are possessed of a collective memory. Like they have individual minds, but in terms of their memory, it's shared amongst everyone in their species. And they're envious of humans for this. They want what humans have. They want their memory to be individual, cut off, right? And I thought this was reminiscent of the Buddhist claim that a human incarnation is the most precious thing that a spirit can ever attain. And this despite all the hardship we face race is worth more than anything else in the universe because incarnating as an individual human is thought to give our immortal soul the opportunity to grow and evolve.
Yeah, unlike a hive mind species, which they're just workers. They don't have a choice. They're born into their work and they just do it for the hive above all else.
And so the game might be painful, but playing it is the envy of the worlds. And so this explains the stranger's thirst for our vital essence, typically described of ghosts. It's interesting to consider that the strangers of Dark City are also non-human intelligence that merely wears the bodies of our dead as a means of manipulating us. You know, like the folks in the Ouija board.
Yeah, but why do they continue to wear the bodies when they're meeting amongst themselves? That's something I found interesting, and I see this kind of desperation in order to attain the human form or the human disposition in them. So it's not just, oh, we need to wear this so we can manipulate them. They have a physical urge to become like that and to get out of, I guess, their hive-mindedness.
So just to suss out the connection with Set, I thought it was interesting. Set is typically considered a god of outsiders. He's sometimes seen as vicious. He's also seen as infertile, sort of like the sands of the desert are infertile, and sometimes alien. He's like a god of outsiders. Meanwhile, his brother energy, Osiris, is moist because it grows stuff, you know?
Yeah, they're adverse to the very things that bring life.
So the cold, dead, machine-like nature of the strangers is a perfect description of the degraded or fallen energies of the Osirian current, now manifest as Set or Satan.
And they live underground, according to the way this world is constructed.
Just like in Shaver's semi-mechanical Darrow, or even the agents of the Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
They don't understand the soul, but boy, do they crave it.
Just a reminder that Set is not technically evil. He's just not allowed to be king.
He's vicious. That's all I said. He's not evil, he's vicious. You know, the aliens in the film aren't really evil.
I mean, they're dying.
Yeah, they're just acting out of survival.
Yeah, just plain and simple. It's like it's hard to call them bad guys outright because they're just trying to survive. And humans seem to have something special. Why do they get to have all the special stuff? We're the bad guys.
In either case, regardless of what dystopian science fiction reality you're enjoying, and especially the nonfiction one you may not be enjoying, the prevailing idea behind Immanentizing the Eschaton is always about staging an Aquarian-style uprising to overthrow the tyrannical alien, demon, Coomer, goblin overlords who eat us as food and usher in a new golden era. You know, one where humanity is empowered, that kind of thing. The only problem is that first humans need to be woken up, which is a perilous ordeal because their environment has been designed by the Black Brotherhood to keep them distracted or asleep, utterly consumed with falsehood with the aim of getting us to identify with it and think in those egoic, limiting terms.
Very One Piece.
I knew it. It's got to go on the bingo card from now on.
It doesn't bother me. I bring up Star Wars constantly, and I will in this episode.
That's the free space on the bingo card.
The story is really nothing new. You can see it reflected in the ancient allegory of the cave by Plato, the same guy who gave us the blueprint for Gnostic thought in the Timaeus, by the way. Now, in the allegory of the cave, the protagonist begins their journey in the darkness of the illusory world and eventually finds their way to the sun. In the case of John Murdoch, he finds himself not so much chained to a brick wall, but submerged in a bathtub. In terms of the tarot, this imagery in this scene strongly resembles the Hanged Man, sometimes known as the Drowned Man, as it appears in the tarot, especially Crowley's edition. Crowley's description of the card, even on an esoteric level, seems to line up perfectly with this sequence.
This card, attributed to the letter Mem, represents the element of water. It would perhaps be better to say that it represents the spiritual function of water in the economy of initiation. It is a baptism, which is also a death. In the Aeon of Osiris, this card represented the supreme formula of adeptship, for the figure of the drowned or hanged man has its own special meaning. The legs are crossed so that the right leg forms a right angle with the left leg, and the arms are stretched out at an angle of 60 degrees so as to form an equilateral triangle. This gives the symbol of the triangle surmounted by the cross, which represents the descent of the light into the darkness in order to redeem it.
This is essentially what the character is destined to do in the film, and usually does.
For this reason, there are green discs. Green, the color of Venus, signifies grace at the terminations of the limbs and the head. The air above the surface of the water is also green, infiltrated by rays of the white light of Kether. The whole figure is suspended from the Ankh, another way of figuring the formula of the rose and cross, while around the left foot is the serpent, creator and destroyer who operates all change.
In the film, the bathtub and the bathroom is totally covered in Venus green tile, the same color we see his love interest wear throughout the film. Crowley makes it sound a bit confusing, but the operative idea about the hangman is the dissolution of the ego, which is abundantly true of John Murdoch, who cannot even remember who he is. Despite this, he's guided by his sense of love. This is what the hangman hanging from the Ankh traditionally is meant to symbolize. We even find above him the white light of Kether that Crowley describes, but in this case it's a swinging lamp. And instead of a serpent, we have a fish, which Crowley will later go on to explain are cognate symbols of the next card, death.
Oh, I love that swinging light in the first scene. Because everything is still. He wakes up, from passing out, but that's the only thing in the room that's moving, but it seems to cast a light that makes everything move. And then also with the hanged man, it's like the hanging light, and it also indicates that some kind of struggle or somebody might have hit the light, but he was seated in the bathtub, so what had happened before that? So it kind of also shows that, something that we don't see initially had happened beforehand. So it's kind of like a lifting of the veil in that respect as well, of where he's about to go next.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about what is this card supposed to represent? Well, when John wakes up and he doesn't know who he is, that's what it's supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to do the hanged man so you could be like John and be like, whoa, I'm clean slate. I'm tabula rasa. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of the hangman representing water, John's last name is Murdoch, an Irish-Scottish name derived from an Irish Gaelic word mur, meaning sea, and mercad, meaning sea warrior. This can relate John to numerous mythological figures, and it does, but in terms of Aeonic mythology, one stands out. The water John rises out of first appears milky lilac purple. In Egyptian mythology, it is not entirely uncommon to depict Horus the child emerging out of a blue water lotus, none too dissimilar to the Buddha in the East. Odin is also thought to have gained no small measure of his mystic power by giving up one of his eyes for a drink of murmur, the waters that flow beneath the world tree Yggdrasil. This might be indicated by the mirror above the sink in this scene, which is curiously missing one of its two light bulbs, perhaps indicating the sacrificed eye. I thought it could also be indicating Schreiber because one of his eyes is a little weird because Schreiber was just in the room. Anyway, Odin or Woden is given an association with Wednesday, and by extension Mercury, who is also a divine child associated with the watery element, and also fish. Also fish, don't forget. When John knocks over the fishbowl, he immediately feels empathy and places the fish in the bathtub he just came out of. This likely symbolizes a few things. First, it symbolizes death, as in the death card, which follows the hanged man, and is associated with the Hebrew letter Nun, which means fish. The waters of Nun are also the primordial waters in Egyptian mythology, the place one returns to in death, and the waters that the hangman is submerged in to accomplish his own ego death. The fish represents the movement or life in this primordial water and is associated with Mercury for its quickness and shimmering scales reminiscent of the liquid it represents alchemically. Mercury is also famously a psychopomp who guides the recently deceased through the underworld, perhaps by saving the fish John is assuring his own safe passage. He, like the fish, is exiting a small bowl of containment and being released into a larger one with a hole that leads directly to the underworld. Because Jesus is often associated with fish, both because of the Bible and being a Piscean Age Messiah, it's possible the goldfish also represents Christ who takes the place of John in the bathtub?
But before the cops get there, John kind of gets a suit on and gets ready to leave, and as he's leaving he sees a dead chick there, right? It looks like maybe a hooker.
Yes.
The way she's dressed, and she's got all these spirals on her body. So the cops break in, right? And they're doing the detective work. One of them says, what kind of killer stops to save a dying fish? And I feel like that's a legit Aquarian man picking up the water symbolically and taking it somewhere else.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
So he's doing his part to no, Daddy Osiris, it's okay. You don't have to kill yourself today. Sit down, old man.
And then later the cop is holding the goldfish in a little cup of water, which is very...
Oh, yeah. The young cop.
Yeah.
I guess the guy that's learning from the detective. He picks up the fish in a cup and takes him back to the station. So apparently the fish lives on.
We'll talk about Ganymede in the second half of the show. It's saucy. Now, during John's escape from the hotel, we find that he's been staying in room 614. Now, in occult numerology, specifically Gematria, the number 614 has the same numerical value as the Hebrew tarid, which generally means to wander, which John is about to do. But in the context of Genesis 27:40, the only place it appears in the Bible at all, it means to break loose.
Oh, that's exactly what he's doing.
It is.
Genesis 27-40. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck.
This seems to indicate that John Murdoch is destined to throw off the oppressive yoke of the demiurge. But according to our Neoplatonic Kabbalistic tree of life, we are beginning to climb out of where we are at the bottom in Malkuth, the material kingdom. This, I suspect, is first indicated by the hotel itself, a temporary place of residence where spirits may stay for a while, often to indulge in material pleasures. From a Gnostic point of view, however, the significance is that the material kingdom is a place where people fall asleep, which is how John finds everyone in the lobby when he arrives at the front desk. You know, the idea of rest isn't totally alien either. From what I understand, in Buddhism, when the spirit is out wandering, it has nowhere it can rest. So the human body is a place where it can like actually rest. It's like Jacob's ladder level symbolism going on here. So as he tries to leave, the man at the front desk awakens and tells him that he must pay. This, I suspect, indicates that we, like staying in a hotel, only have so much time on Earth. And when our time is up, it's up. The man at the desk informs John that his wallet has been found at the automat and that he better get to it because he's only paid up for 3 weeks, which are up 10 minutes ago. These numbers, in my opinion, seem to confirm my suspicion, as 3 weeks equals 21 days, the number of the tarot card, the universe, which is the path out of Malkuth, the 10th sphere. 10 minutes ago, 10th sphere, get it? This path is poetically named the machinery of the universe and is given the planetary association of Saturn. The Hebrew letter association is Tau, which means mark or cross, as it represents the black cube our soul is crucified to here in the material world.
And time.
Yes, like absolutely. That's like the symbol of Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Like the hero is crucified to that clock. The worker is stuck to the time clock. So 100%. Of course, this is what the Wachowski brothers called the Matrix, what Philip K. Dick called the Black Iron Prison, and what Gnostics refer to as the Kanoma, the material world, a cruel, awkward shadow or simulation of the heavenly world above. John, however, is about to see what makes the whole thing tick, in this case, quite literally. This is what the machinery of the universe means. It's a peek behind the curtain of this world, one that people glimpse during astral travel. This also makes sense why John is walking through a room full of people who are asleep, and he's also moving towards the machinery, which is responsible not just for manifesting the world, but giving us our dreams, our memories, our personality. In terms of the realm of occult tradition, this indicates the initiate's first step back towards God, which in said traditions is the evolutionary destiny of all humankind. Just a short while later, Schreiber finds himself made to answer the Archons about this particular development.
Maybe he's a step up the evolutionary ladder, a freak of nature. He's adapting to survive. What do you expect? Weren't you looking for the human soul? Isn't that the purpose of your little zoo? That's why you change people and things every night.
Is this the same guy who voices Punish Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5?
Yes, sir.
Crazy.
I love this actor too.
He's also in the Twin Peaks movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. And he has some Lynchian archetypal overlap with those characters as well, but we'll get there.
It's all there if you know what I'm talking about. Well, except for the one in Twin Peaks, it's a very minor role, but he's in it, and he's surrounded with the particular incident. Very cool.
I love this part of the movie, too, because John has literally, because all the people are sleeping, this is part of when they change people's memories out, he was immune to it for some reason.
Yeah.
And the strangers are all pissed off about it, but the doctor, who is a human that was taken under their side to work for them, he points out, this is what you wanted, because this is what your experiment is supposed to produce. So why aren't you happy that you've gotten a result from your experiment? But they're angry because he seems to have the same kind of abilities that they do.
Yeah, they're like still dumbfounded about the whole thing.
They're like, we want to become like humans, not humans become like us. So they're not very happy about this happening, obviously.
Yeah. So assuming John is on this path, the machinery of the universe, this is what Dion Fortune says in her masterpiece on the subject, Mystical Kabbalah.
Manifestation in Malkuth completes the outgoing arc of involution, and life turns back upon itself to pursue a parallel course on the returning arc of evolution. Human intelligence develops and begins to meditate upon causation and discerns the gods. Be it noted that primitive man has never achieved monotheism in a single stride. He has always conceived of causation as multiform, and it has required many generations of culture to reduce the many to the one.
This is what Mr. Book has to say about that. It requires several of your lifetimes to master our gifts. The idea that a simple man could develop the ability to tune is
absurd, I know.
Dion Fortune's description of these first evolutionary steps back towards the Eschaton work perfectly to describe the sequence of the film.
This brings us to the great question, which might almost be called the dweller on the threshold of occult science. The horror which confronts every adventurer into the unseen, which unites in itself the functions of the Sphinx and asks a question of the soul upon the answer to which hangs his fate. Shall he be condemned to wander in the realms of illusion? Shall he be turned back onto the planes of form? Or shall he be permitted to pass on into the light? This question is, do you believe in the gods? If he answers yes, he will will be a wanderer in the plains of illusion, for the gods are not real persons as we understand personality. If he answers no, he will be turned back at the gate, for the gods are not illusions. What then shall he answer?
So pretty esoteric, but this idea is developed a bit more in the following scene. So, like a child, John immediately begins trying to figure out his ego identity, which seems to be represented in the following scene by the mannequins. In the window of a nearby shop, there are a pair of male and female mannequins, their clothing on display, likely representing our personalities, our name, our memories. They're little more than garments our soul wears to clothe itself, changing and discarding them at will. At the end of this scene, Hecka pointed out, you find the male and female mannequins have suddenly swapped places. In fact, the whole frame is flipped. I think it's meant to indicate mutable Mercury, who is sometimes also hermaphroditic, even tricksy. In the Kabbalistic tree of life, Mercury is associated with the sphere of Hod, which is also thought to clothe universal archetypes in their unique cultural variation. Here we find John trying on different first names and trying to decide which one feels best. But there is a darker aspect in that, like the mannequin, the humans of the story are treated as if they have no soul, identity, or life. They're merely coat hangers for the memories that the strangers clothe them in. The strangers, as we often do, have confused the clothing for the person. This is what is meant by Dion Fortune when she says,
For the gods are not real persons as we understand personality.
because to her, a hardcore Kabbalist, the gods are the illusory qualities of the ego, or personality, projected onto the divine, and by extension, given control over us until we realize that it is what we are unconsciously, maybe even automatically doing.
Yeah, like archetypal forms. So they're projection of, I guess, the realm of the forms, because that's where every perfect concept lives. So say I'm a type A personality and, you know, these are my pet peeves and this is what I'm excited about. Okay, so you could take that, if a person could draw their personality as a shape and say that's like drawing a triangle, every person will draw a triangle in a different way, but the perfect, most awesome triangle only exists in this like special area where gods live, where like the actual perfect form exists. But in this reality, no perfect form exists like that.
Like egregores of machinations or mechanisms of creation
Yeah.
or existence.
They're also called the creations of the created, that you would say that, the things that live in this sphere. It's basically like, you know, if there's 7 basic archetypes, every culture puts their own cultural mask on it, and then they allow that cultural mask to decide their life until they realize that it was themselves who projected their own personality onto the universal energy.
Yes. Yeah, that's all it's for.
So pretty heady stuff, but you know, the next scene is my favorite, and I spent 3 sessions. It's a 1-minute scene and maybe 30 seconds long. It is so full of meaning, and I love it. Let me tell you about it, okay? So
What? Where? In the automat?
the automat.
He spent like 3 days straight writing about it and talking about it. It's
I love the automat scene because it makes me really hungry and I want to try all of the different foods.
I'd actually never seen an
Like that.
automat before, or like since watching
I've never
this
seen
film.
one. No,
Yeah.
I mean, they
You
have
wanna-
them in Japan kind of, but like not here. Like they had them in the 50s, I think. But
you want
I
to
w-
try all the foods like the carrots?
yeah, well, like everything in the windows looked good. But I like institutional cafeteria food. So it's just a thing that I like.
We actually had those actually do exist like in hospitals and stuff.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
They got started in Germany, so wink and nod.
Oh, German expressionism. Nice.
Yeah. All right, so just prior to John walking into the automat, he's outside staring at his fingertips, which the film juxtaposes against the spirals carved into the prostitute he's thought to have murdered back at the hotel where the police are now investigating. In reply to the horrifying scene, the lead investigator, Frank Bumstead, says, looks like somebody must have woken on the wrong side of the bed. As John climbs the short stairs to the automat, a cafe sign on frame left can be seen which says, coffee, 6 cents, which I believe is meant to indicate that John is now waking up, as in the coffee, as Bumstead said, by following his 6th sense, a theme which will be developed in the scenes that follow.
I mean, that's pretty cool because coffee in movies like kind of symbolizes the character waking up.
Yes,
In
and
many
6th
ways.
sense, why is it 6th sense? It's because it sounds like sixth
Right.
sense.
Yeah, I guess awakening their power, like almost like fulfilling their archetypal role.
So this concept, being guided blindly by intuition, combined with the hazardous attainment of an ego personality, along with the name and strangely symmetrical layout of the automat, all strangely indicate the moon card of the major arcana. The lobster or scarab depicted in the moon card represents 2 related ideas, the physical body and the personality/ego complex. They're pretty much related. Science will agree with that. So this unit of individuality is then depicted as rising up out of the primordial waters, which we just saw in the previous scene, and is related to the concept of birth. birth. Go figure. After all, the horseshoe crab, for instance, is drawn to the beach during the full moon to mate, lay its eggs, and even hatch. This all happens during the full or new moon. The shell on the little crustacean represents the hard barrier or wall which separates the individual ego from the undifferentiated waters of chaos, or noon. In a more modern parlance, we might call it the collective unconscious. And so this is what is indicated by the various different food options inside the automat, which are demarcated into distinct little boxes. The fact that one of these little boxes contains the egoic contents of the protagonist falls perfectly in line with the symbolism. At first, John tries questioning the guy behind the counter, wanting to know when the wallet was dropped off, but no helpful answers are forthcoming. I think this is meant to indicate the ego or personality has no meaningful origin. It's baseless. It's essentially both accidental and arbitrary. It's assigned to us at birth, much like it is here in Dark City. And like in Dark City, the ego and personality can be moved around, like rearranged and swapped out at will, like in an automat. And this scene also seems to point out the idea that the ego, in this way, it's little more than a convenience. It's a product intended to perpetuate the survival of a person, and it is perhaps food to a higher life form, like the strangers. I think this makes sense with the plot of the film, because the stranger's lust for the human soul has something to do with its capacity for having an individual, walled-off ego complex, the exact thing which is represented in the moon card. Now, the same horseshoe crab mentioned earlier, in fact, it only ever really sees a minority of its eggs hatch because they basically serve as on-demand food for the endemic bird life at the beach. Like horseshoe crabs, they lay a bunch of eggs and the birds show up like an automat and they're like, oh, I'll have some of that, and they'll have some of that, and some of that, and like a few of them survive. We find the same peril repeated in this scene. At first, John is frustrated by the indifference of the automat operator. Instead of just handing John the wallet, he places inside one of the locked compartments. John is afraid to make a scene because 2 police since walked in and have taken their seat at the threshold, also emblematic of the moon card. Like the horseshoe crab or the infant human, being born is a sudden and perilous act of survival which requires the use of will before one is even aware of oneself. This is true for John, who instinctually uses his new psychic gifts out of survival pressure, causing the automat box to suddenly spring open. Well, John is neither a crab or an infant. His use of his psychic ability constitutes a birth of sorts for both him and the human race. The new aeonic man is now born! Oh yeah! The problem is, just like the horseshoe crab, he needs to slip past the ferocious guardians of the threshold and back to the relative safety of the darkness if he wants his journey to continue beyond being a hatchling.
If I say it's safe to surf this beach, Captain, it's safe to surf this beach! I mean, I'm not afraid to surf this place. I'm safe to surf this fucking place!
The dialogue in this section seems to confirm our analysis. As John tries to slip by undetected, one of the officers extends his baton, blocking his entrance, and asks, "Where you headed, Chief?" In a frustrated, unconvincing reply, John huffs, "Home," to which the cop instantly inquires, "Where's home?" Naturally, John doesn't know. John, like all spiritual seekers, and even just regular folks in the world, they're all seeking a home, which, as George Carlin has famously pointed out, is a subjective, abstract idea, unlike a house. So, while John knows he's going home, his intuition only shows him the way. It doesn't tell him the destination. The moon is a good metaphor for this because the moon is cathodic. It does not generate its own light, and only dimly, coldly reflects the light of the sun. In terms of occult philosophy, we may understand the moon as the body or psyche, the moon card itself suggesting the two are intimately related. Meanwhile, the sun represents the very soul itself. In this way, our body-mind complex of psyche and personality is little more than the dim, reflected light of our soul. On the Kabbalistic tree of life, the cave we're emerging from, the sun is associated with the sphere of Tifereth, which, as I am hinting, is the place where our eternal soul, or true self, exists. This is the, quote, home of our being. Here it seems worth mentioning that Tifereth connects directly to every other sphere on the tree of life except Malkuth, the material world, where its line of sight is blocked or eclipsed by the moon, which we ultimately must follow to arrive at its source, the sun. I think this is what Pink Floyd may have meant in the one song, "Everything Eclipsed by the Moon." In Dark City, this seems to be what Shell Beach represents to John. This is, even though dimly reflected through the fogged mirror of his intuition, this is the light that John is ultimately following and the home that he is seeking. Incidentally, the name Shell Beach could not more perfectly describe the moon card and the journey it represents. Before John can even give a reply, the hooker that was waiting outside suddenly enters the automat, links arms with John, and replies to the police for him. "Haven't you mugs got anything better to do? The first officer replies, "Well, I'm just trying to do my job, May. May then offers, there's a killer out there in case you didn't notice. Maybe you should be out looking for him instead of cooling your heels, huh? This seems to inspire a chuckle in the officers, who relent and offer a hearty, why don't you get out of here?
Saved by the hooker.
Even this short bit of dialogue builds on the themes we've discussed so far. May referring to the police as mugs in a film where water represents the ego or bodily personality is like calling them NPCs. The only personality or character these two cops have is the one assigned or poured into them, which they confirm by replying they're just trying to do their job. Mugs can also refer to a face, which is also symbolic of one's personality or persona. That word itself means mask. Both meanings fit quite well because the moon card, at least in the Rider-Waite depiction, it has a mask. It's meant to associate the personality. During this interaction, the police refer to the prostitute by her name, May. Etymologically, May has its roots to the ancient Greek Maia, who is one of 7 Pleiades, and also the mother of Hermes, who is of course another Zeus affair baby. He has a lot of those. This too is apt for the events in this scene, because in the ancient myth, Maia gives birth to Hermes in a cave, which this is the allegory of. Hermes, although still swaddled in his blanket, is a wee infant, manages to escape the cave and steal a cow from his brother Apollo. Maia famously defends little Hermes from Zeus, similar to how May does with John in the film. He's just an innocent child after all, barely even born. How could he be a thief? Better still, while Hermes is out in the world, he kills a tortoise and makes a lyre, in some cases a lute, out of its shell. When Apollo eventually catches Hermes, he's so impressed with the string instrument that he offers to let Hermes keep the cow if Apollo can have the lyre. While the aquatic shell, the tortoise, and the sun, via Apollo, are also both symbols for Shell Beach, the home he's going towards, the lyre also corresponds with John's ability to tune, the name given to psychic ability in Dark City.
Oh, wow. Profound. Because, I hear Shell Beach, I'm thinking of, seashells. I didn't even think about a tortoise shell. Well, not a tortoise. It would have to be a turtle. Tortoise are the land ones.
Yeah.
But still, sea turtles.
And the most important part of the moon card is the shell. It's about the shell. That's the whole point.
And they lay their eggs on the beach at night, and the babies hatch and have to go to the water. They have to do their own spiritual journey before they get to the water.
If you had to tell an AI in 2 words how to draw the moon card, it's what you'd say. It'd be like, shell, beach.
I mean, I'm thinking of some new things now. There's a big focus on the hangman being John in a way, right?
Yeah.
What if we take the tree of life itself and hang it upside down? We get, the clip off. And those spheres on that tree are shells.
Yes.
So maybe he's looking at the whole journey upside down. Therefore, he's seeing the spheres as shells.
Well, there is a related concept that works with this. Essentially, in this part of the film, he's working through the lower part of the tree, which is sometimes, of course, considered fallen, right? And in that regard, clipothic, perhaps. Essentially, everything below the veil of Paraketh is considered in darkness, and he is in Dark City.
I like how the first thing that he does basically after leaving the hotel is go to the automat, because this whole loss of ego, divine child born, it's an automatic function for you to have an ego in order to interface with the world. It's an automatic function that basically has to happen in order for him to interface with the world.
And pay the bill. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's also an automatic function for that to be a secured mechanism, whether you want to look at it psychologically or spiritually. And because it's a secured mechanism, you have the security, the police there,
Yes.
which is kind of like the wolf and the dog in the moon card as well.
In terms of John being Mercury, there's some other things that back it up. For instance, when the police chief is talking to Bumstead, he says, the killer's running circles around us. He's too fast. And then when Dr. Schreiber is pleading his case to the strangers, he remarks that John escaped from him because he was too fast. Not that John is too strong or, he woke up. It's no, he's too fast. That really actually doesn't make sense. It's just written that way because Mercury is the fleet-footed one.
Who is the same thing as Hermes.
Yes. And of course, he has to learn the hermetic arts, right?
And the running circles is great because it's almost like he's going in a spiral motion.
Indeed.
So the spiral comes into play again with this wordplay.
But if you'd like to hear the rest of our analysis, which includes the brothel in Netstock, also we go pretty deep there. What Frank Bumstead represents, Emma, played by Jennifer Connelly, and especially a huge section about the strangers, what they have to do with the Brotherhood of Saturn, the FOGC, some of their crazy occult technology. Is it real? The Men in Black, who Schreiber represents,
Labyrinths and spirals.
and just a whole lot of occult mythology, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you access to this extended episode, it'll get you all our extended episodes that you can browse to right within Spotify, which is quite convenient after you log in to Patreon. But not only that, I'll send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker for our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll get the secret keys that get you into our Discord server where you can play games with us. We started playing poker, Texas Hold'em. It's just been me and Hecka so far. No, wait, we had a third person. We want to get a whole table going, okay? I like poker.
I'll play poker.
Because I can win at poker. She's too good at Scrabble.
Yeah. Agreed.
Also, if you join the Patreon, you can actually join us and talk to us during live drops of the episode.
Yup.
Yeah, because we sit and chat.
We're on Patreon too, but Discord has a whole lot more other people.
Until then, thank you everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew pew.
Pew, pew, pew.